Welcome to People's Journal Stories. Before we begin this incredible story of unexpected kindness, late-night compassion, and the moment when a Hollywood star proved that true character shines brightest when no cameras are rolling, tell me in the comments where are you watching from today. And if you believe stories like this deserve recognition, hit that subscribe button and help us honor the everyday heroes walking among us. It was 11:47 p.m. on a rainy Thursday night in Los Angeles when David Walsh stood in the fluorescent-lit aisles of Westwood Pharmacy, staring at a prescription bottle he couldn't afford. His 12-year-old son, Tyler, was at home, struggling to breathe without his asthma inhaler, and David was facing every parent's worst nightmare, watching his child suffer while being powerless to help. What David didn't know was that in the next 30 minutes, his life would change forever. What he couldn't have imagined was that the quiet man browsing the cold medicine aisle would turn out to be one of the most generous souls in Hollywood. This is the story of how Keanu Reeves turned a father's darkest moment into a beacon of hope. David Walsh was 45 years old, a mechanical engineer who had been laid off 6 months earlier when his aerospace company downsized. His savings had dwindled to almost nothing, and his health insurance had lapsed 3 weeks ago. His son Tyler was everything to David. After his wife Jennifer had passed away from cancer 2 years earlier, Tyler had become his entire world. Tyler's asthma had been getting worse due to the California wildfires that fall. His rescue inhaler had run out that morning, and when David called their usual pharmacy, he learned that without insurance, the replacement would cost $347. David had exactly $63 in his checking account and $18 in cash. That evening, Tyler had suffered his worst asthma attack yet. David had driven him to the emergency room, where they stabilized his breathing. The ER doctor was firm. Tyler needed his rescue inhaler immediately. The nearest 24-hour pharmacy was Westwood Pharmacy on Pico Boulevard. David stood in that pharmacy aisle feeling like he had failed as a father. The pharmacist, Maria, had shaken her head sympathetically when she saw David's financial situation. There was no payment plan, no generic version, no assistance program that could help immediately. At 11:52 p.m., another customer entered the pharmacy. The man was dressed casually in jeans and a dark hoodie with a baseball cap pulled low over his face. He moved quietly through the aisles, purchasing cough syrup and throat lozenges. David approached the counter with Tyler's prescription, explaining his situation to Maria in low tones. He told her about Tyler's asthma attack, about being laid off, about the lapsed insurance. He asked if there was any assistance program, any way to get even a partial inhaler. Maria listened with genuine compassion, but explained that the pharmacy's policies were strict about payment. The man in the hoodie had finished his transaction, but hadn't left the counter. Instead, the stranger spoke directly to David. The man said quietly that he couldn't help but overhear David's situation. He explained that he had dealt with respiratory issues himself and understood how frightening it could be, especially for a child. Then he asked David about Tyler's age and how long he had been dealing with asthma. Something about the stranger's voice made David feel comfortable opening up. David told the man about Jennifer's death, about losing his job, about watching his bright, curious son struggle to breathe while being unable to help him. He described Tyler's love of science, how the boy built robots from spare parts and dreamed of becoming an engineer like his father. The stranger listened intently, asking thoughtful questions about Tyler's interests and David's background. When David mentioned his aerospace engineering experience, the man's eyes lit up with genuine interest. When David finished explaining his situation, the man was quiet for a moment. Then he told David about his own experiences with family illness, speaking about the helplessness that comes with watching someone you love suffer. The stranger then asked Maria about the cost of Tyler's inhaler. When she confirmed the $347 price, the man simply nodded and told her he would like to pay for David's prescription. David was stunned and started to protest, saying he couldn't accept such an expensive gift from a stranger. But the man insisted, explaining that he believed parents should never have to choose between financial stability and their child's health. As the man handed David the pharmacy bag containing Tyler's inhaler, his baseball cap shifted slightly under the bright pharmacy lights. David caught a glimpse of his face and felt a shock of recognition. The kind stranger was Keanu Reeves. When David whispered Keanu's name in recognition, the actor simply smiled and suggested they step outside to continue their conversation. In the parking lot, Keanu explained that he often dealt with insomnia and found himself out late, running errands when the city was quieter. But then Keanu surprised David even further. He asked about David's job search and his engineering background. When David explained his aerospace experience and the challenges of finding work in his field, Keanu became thoughtful. He told David about technical consultants he had worked with on various film projects, particularly science fiction movies that required accurate engineering details. Before they parted ways, Keanu gave David his assistant's business card. He told David to contact the office the next day and mention their conversation. There might be opportunities for freelance technical consulting work that could help bridge the gap, while David continued looking for a permanent position. David drove home holding Tyler's inhaler like it was the most precious thing in the world. When he got home, Tyler was sleeping fitfully on the couch. David gently woke his son and gave him the inhaler. Tyler's relief was immediate and visible as his breathing eased. The next morning, David called Keanu's assistant, Marcus, who was expecting David's call and already had information about potential consulting opportunities. Within a week, David had his first freelance assignment, reviewing technical specifications for a movie about Mars colonization. The consulting work wasn't steady enough to replace a full-time salary, but it provided crucial income during David's continued job search. More importantly, it gave David hope and a sense of purpose that had been missing since his layoff. But Keanu's kindness extended beyond that single night. 3 weeks later, David received a package containing advanced engineering textbooks and software that Tyler had mentioned wanting to explore. When Tyler started middle school that fall, his class received an anonymous donation of new computers and science equipment. Tyler thrived with access to better technology. 6 months after the pharmacy encounter, David finally landed a permanent engineering position with a renewable energy company. His new employer had been impressed by his recent consulting work. David was able to get health insurance again, ensuring that Tyler's medical needs would be covered. David never spoke publicly about what happened that night at the pharmacy. He respected Keanu's privacy and understood that the actor preferred his charitable acts to remain private. Inspired by the kindness he had received, David began volunteering with organizations that helped unemployed workers develop new skills. He used his engineering background to teach technical courses at community centers, helping other laid-off workers transition into new fields. Tyler, now 15, had become an accomplished young engineer. His robotics team had won several regional competitions, and he had been accepted into a prestigious summer program for gifted students. More importantly, he had inherited his father's commitment to helping others, often staying after school to tutor struggling classmates. 2 years after that night at the pharmacy, David established the Tyler Walsh STEM Education Fund, a scholarship program for children from low-income families who showed promise in science and technology. David privately dedicated it to the quiet man who had taught him that sometimes the most important thing you can do is help a stranger when no one is watching. Tyler had no idea that his current opportunities had originated with a chance encounter between his desperate father and a compassionate stranger in a late-night pharmacy. When asked about his success, Tyler always credited his father's support and the importance of having access to educational resources. Keanu Reeves continued to live his life quietly, never speaking publicly about his private acts of charity. He continued to take public transportation, shop at regular stores, and treat everyone he encountered with the same respect and kindness he had shown David that night. This story reminds us that heroism doesn't always happen on movie screens. Sometimes it happens at midnight in a pharmacy, when someone with the ability to help chooses to do so without expecting recognition or reward. It shows us that small acts of kindness can create ripples that extend far beyond their original impact. David Walsh learned that night that asking for help isn't a sign of weakness, and Tyler Walsh learned that the world contains more goodness than we sometimes realize. In a world that often feels divided and impersonal, stories like this prove that human connection and compassion still matter. Thank you for watching People's Journal Stories. If this story inspired you, please share it with someone who needs to be reminded that good people still exist. Subscribe for more stories of unexpected kindness, and remember, the next time you have the opportunity to help someone, even in a small way, take it. You never know how much it might mean to them.